everything might not be fun.
The politicians keep saying, why is our healthcare system so expensive? And like, duh.
How does that make any sense? We'll figure it out. This is the thing, I'm just getting totally unhinged now, and I don't know what to do. Taking off and landing right in front of you. It's a place I always brought my kids. It's a great path. And also just to give you a sense of why you shouldn't always listen to doctors. I'm lucky to be on my bike right now. I was just in North Carolina and I had some food in the car. So I saw this underground parking garage. We were waiting for our house to be ready. And so I decided to take the car into the garage because it's cooler. And I hear a boom. And I said, uh-oh, my bikes are on my roof. So took out my bike, took out part of the parking garage, and with a little duct tape, my bike's doing okay. So here I am with you today. But you know, when doctors give you advice about stuff, just take that into consideration. That's kind of how we think. So I want to talk about cholesterol, that number that has reached almost spiritual significance. You know, everyone's concerned about their cholesterol. You even heard Mike and Paula say that they wanted their cholesterol checked when they go to the doctor. And sure, that makes sense to check it once in a blue moon to make sure you're not some outlier. But how important is cholesterol? There's a whole school of cardiologists that think this is everything. You know, they actually are kind of religious about it. It's their Bible. You know, they're pissed off about people who don't think it is. They are convinced that you gotta check the cholesterol and lower the cholesterol, and that's important. But, you know, really when you look at the studies, it doesn't look that way. Cholesterol, like we talked about, when it sticks into your blood vessels, when you get plaque that we talked about, and that plaque ruptures, then that puts you at high risk for heart disease. You get heart attacks, you get strokes. But how much of the cholesterol in your bloodstream that we measure actually sticks? Well, the answer is kind of surprising. Turns out that it is not that well correlated. I'm going to show you a BRCT, and as you can see, this BRCT shows the risk factor of cholesterol. These are people with high cholesterol, and how many of them are at additional risk for heart disease. And as you can see, there's one dot. Because it turns out that people with high cholesterol and low cholesterol equally show up with heart attacks. I have patients whose cholesterol is so high that when their cardiologists look at those numbers, they have a heart attack. That's a risk factor for cardiologists to have a heart attack, to see these people's cholesterol. But we did something called a calcium score on them, which shows how much plaque you have. And it only shows some of the plaque, but it's a very good correlate to whether you have plaque that can rupture. And I have people with these tremendously high cholesterols with zero plaque. And as you can see from this BRCT, people with a zero calcium score, 1 out of 1,000, move on to get a heart attack despite their cholesterol. It doesn't matter whether it's high or low. So why are these people so healthy? Why do they have such high cholesterol and none of it sticks? Because that's the real question. So, you know, clearly some of it's genetic, but in these people it's lifestyle. They don't smoke, they eat a healthy diet with low carbohydrates and lots of fruits and vegetables, and they exercise regularly. And that's really the secret. So it's not the cholesterol. Measuring cholesterol really can fool you. If your cholesterol is normal, you might think you're okay. If it's high, you'll think you're sick, but it is not a risk factor for heart disease or stroke. It just isn't. And we know that too because there are tons of drugs out there, expensive drugs, that will lower someone's cholesterol dramatically, make the number look good. Cardiologist is happy, the patient's happy, but does not reduce the risk of heart attack, stroke, or death. Zero. Lots of drugs like that. There's a new one that just came out that cost $14,000 a year that actually did reduce heart attack risk by a couple people per 1,000, but they were little heart attacks and it did not reduce death at all. So again, we have evidence that lowering cholesterol in and of itself is not that helpful. So why do we measure it if that's the case? I don't have an answer. I have no idea. And I don't know why it has such significance. A lot of people talk about cholesterol medicines like statins. This is Lipitor and Zocor and medicines like that. Now, interestingly, those medicines do reduce the risk of heart attack, death, and stroke by a sizable amount. I'll show you this BRCT. And as you can see, the people who are at high risk for heart disease, these are people who either have a lot of risk factors or have had a heart attack before, they actually do get a benefit from these medicines. Over 5 years, 40 out of 1,000 of them reduce heart attack, stroke, or death, which is a big endpoint. Now, you could look at it the other way and say, well, 96% of people do not have that benefit, even in high-risk people. When you go to moderate-risk people and low-risk people, those numbers are dramatically lower. And across the board, it doesn't matter what their cholesterol is. If you have a high-risk person with a low cholesterol, they still get that benefit. If you have a low-risk person with a high cholesterol, they don't get the benefit. Benefit does not occur. So statins are great medicines because they stabilize plaque. They prevent plaque from rupturing. And if you don't have plaques, no matter how high your cholesterol is, statins don't work. They're useless. And if you do have plaque, no matter how low your cholesterol is, they do work. So finding plaque, finding risk factors is a much more telling way to decide who should be on a statin or not measuring cholesterol. It's more of how sick is your body, how inflammatory is your body, that you're producing the chemicals necessary to cause cholesterol to stick. And again, that does not mean how high is your cholesterol. And interestingly, lifestyle has a big influence even when compared to statins. So if you look at this BRCT, even with people at high risk, exercising confers the same benefit as statins. And once you get to moderate risk, exercise confers a much higher benefit than statins. Again, doesn't matter what the cholesterol is. And statins have very real side effects. The cardiologists always poo-poo this. I lived with the side effects. I was on a cholesterol medicine for some stupid reason. I don't know why I put myself on it a while ago when I was dumber, just for a few months. But that summer I couldn't run. And for the first time in my life, I had to get picked up several times from my run. I've never had that happen before. My legs were just weak. And when I give this to people, especially as they get older, I notice that's exactly what's happening. Their legs get weak, they get achy, and they're told those aren't real. They're made up side effects. These are real side effects. Studies show that they're real, and they happen very, very often. So there are a lot of people who would weigh the risks and benefits, especially if they're moderate risk, and say, I don't really need this medicine if it's causing me this distress. Or other people say, let's work with this medicine and see if it can help. Now, exercise causes pain too. I mean, there's a hill over there that I was hurting going up, but again, that's a different kind of pain. Statins actually do cause muscle destruction, so there's a negative to them also. So again, when you look at everything we've talked about with stress tests, stents, and heart disease in general, cholesterol medicines and cholesterol checking, just another way to try to find one marker to show what your health is and to fix that marker assuming you're going to get better. It prevents us as doctors from looking at you as a whole person and deciding whether, lifestyle changes and other factors are more important, which is what annoys me about it. From the standpoint of Medicare and other insurances, the cholesterol market is costing us billions and tens of billions of dollars a year, just for the drugs alone. And I will say that these people who are the religious fanatic cholesterol advocates, almost invariably, even though they're at these great prestigious universities, are conducting studies that are sponsored by the very pharmaceuticals that make cholesterol drugs. So don't be looking at them as the great saints of the world. The reality is very stark and it's very simple. Cholesterol itself is not important. Everything else that determines your risk is, and that's how we have to look at this. Okay, take care. Hey, hope you like the podcast. We'll be back next week. I'm going to give you some information. If you want to check the website, if you want to email me, if you got your own stories, let's talk about it. See you next week.